Welcome to the Rise to Shine podcast with Noelle Custis, where we ignite the spark to discover your favorite self. It is time to get real, ladies. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Rise to Shine podcast. I'm your host, Noelle Custis, and I am so excited today because we have a very special guest. This is going to be a very full circle moment for me because, as you know, I was a teacher for a little over 25 years, and today my beautiful guest that's joining me was a former second grade student of mine. It's so fun. And now she has grown up to be this beautiful wife and mom, not to mention just a really beautiful soul that continues to actually really inspire me. And I will say, she kind of feels like a second daughter to me because we are friends now with family. Well, we always have been friends with the family, and we also just kind of all do life together. And she reminds me so much of my own daughter. I feel like they're kind of like the same spirit animal. So it's a lot of fun. It is going to be so fun to be on this episode today because this is going to be an episode that's just going to be raw. It's going to be real. It's just a conversation, but you're going to see why I wanted to have her on this podcast because she is so authentic in the way she chooses to do life, and she does it where it is true to herself. And I think that that is something we all need a little bit more of. So with all of that being said, welcome, Taylor Martinez.
Thank you, and hello.
Hi.
I love how you described our relationship because I always get lost in those words. When I tell you, I'm like, she was my second grade teacher, but like also we've shared a village for my entire existence. Like she was part of the village that raised me, and now she's part of the village that raising my kids, and my mom was part of her village. Like we go deep.
Yes.
We are very connected in all of the ways. So I love that.
And it's so fun because it's been so fun to see it like all evolve, because even for me, when I tell people this story, about who you are and, what your family means to me, it's crazy. And it's so funny because there's even people in our community, even though you guys moved away when you were fairly young, out of California, there are still so many ties and connections here, obviously, one being your family, but even just amongst the community, like friends that you had as a child, the moms, we're still friends. And so, your name gets brought up. So it's always like, we're always a part of each other's world.
Definitely. No escaping that.
That's right. Well, I am so excited you're here. And I just want to thank you. I know that, this is a little out of your comfort zone. And, I was telling you, I really just want to have you on. It was from the beginning of when I started this podcast. I really felt like you were someone that I really needed to have you on for so many reasons. And we'll dive into that. And I know that your response was always like, do I have anything valuable to share? Like, really? What? I'm just a mom doing my thing. Even in your bio, I loved it because we always have a form to fill out to come onto the podcast. And you're like something to the effect of, I'm just a mom doing my thing, like everybody else out there, But that's exactly why I wanted you on, because I love that. And then there's a couple other things that I want to talk about. So let's get started.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I don't feel deserving of this space, but I will just sit in gratitude and take advantage of the moment.
Well, it's going to be great. And I know that there's going to be so much value for moms out there across the board. So as we get started, the first thing that I would just love to do is really just have you share a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background before we get into all of the things.
Okay. So my name's Taylor. I'm 29. This year was my golden birthday. I made a big deal out of it. 29 on the 29th this year, and I am currently pregnant with my 4th child, which is wild. I've been married to my husband, Danny, for 9 years. Yeah, we had our 9th anniversary this year. And we have our oldest son, Micah, is 7. And then our middle son, well, our middle child, Rocco, is 5. And then our youngest, Valley, is 3. And then number 4 will come in October. Um,
Yes.
and we don't know what it is. So everybody always asks. But my husband joined the military right out of high school, and I've been doing the whole Marine Corps military wife, mom shindig for the last decade of my life. And he got out in November, I think it was. So this has been our first year transitioning as a family out of that world. Lots of identity changes happening,
Yeah.
lots of circumstantial changes happening, and yeah, it's been a big year for us, I feel.
Yeah. It
So
has been just watching it all unfold. It has definitely been a big year. And, that's definitely something that we can chat about because I know if it's one thing that I have recognized with you is that, you know, just the pivots that you have made in your life, whether by choice or not by choice. Obviously, being a military wife, like there are things that have to do. And, there's moves that take place in that space and so many different things. And then on top of that, I've also recognized the pivots and, know some of the pivots that you have chosen to make. And so, you know, I think first and foremost, what I admire about you, Taylor, is that like your decision, you knew early on that you wanted to be a mom and that you wanted to have a bigger family. And I think the decision, as I watch you and as I know you and see you growing up, I always feel like that's something that is like the main priority in your life. And, as a couple and, you guys are moving forward. So I'm curious, how did becoming a mother impact your path? Because I know a little bit of that story, but I would love to hear how did being a mother impact your path? And maybe even like your definition of what success was as a mom and how that has either stayed the same or how that has changed in the last several years.
um yeah, I think I come from a long line of young moms. My mom was a young mom, my grandma was a young mom, my great grandma was a young mom, and I have experienced so many of the blessings that come along with that.
Mhm.
Just as far as like the extra time we get together, and like our abilities in life in those beginning stages of motherhood. And yeah, I'm not shy that being a mama is like my favorite thing about myself,
Yeah.
uh, and about my life. And I am like, have been so like happily and willingly lost in motherhood for the last, whatever, 8 years, eight and a
Yeah.
half years since getting pregnant for the first time. Um, and in the same breath, like that comes with a lot of hardships. Like it's not easy to be a young mom. It's not easy to get married young. Like those, Danny and I got real busy and checked a lot of boxes before our frontal lobes were even fully developed. So that comes with hardships in itself. And I think my perspective on like my own personal success, like I said, personally in motherhood or professionally or just whatever word you want to use, is
Mhm.
I feel like I attach a lot of value to, how do I want to word this? Like the idea or the concept or the fantasy of what my children can and will say about me when they are adults.
Mm.
That's where I hold a lot of my value in their life currently. Is I really, really want them to grow up and be, oh,
Mm.
thumbs up, sorry, grow up and be good people and to be able to say good things about me as a mom. Does that mean that I think that I'm perfect or I strive to be? Absolutely not. But I hope that I've done my due diligence when it comes to my children, their emotional intelligence, their empathy, their capacity
Yeah.
to say she struggled in these ways or she fell short in these ways, but like, dang, did she try and did she love it?
Mm.
Did we have a good life? Or like, I don't ever want them to doubt those efforts. And I think that's where I hold my highest value.
Yeah. No, I love that. And
Business.
it's so interesting because my mom was a single mom as well, and a little bit of a different path, obviously. I mean, she was a young mom, and my dad ended up passing away when we were young. I was 8 and my brother was 5. Um, but that is something that I feel like that value is something I hold dear as well, because I watched my mom do exactly what you're expressing here. Like
Yeah.
I had that life, like even though it was hard and it was stressful and there were a lot of transitions and pivots in her life, like, was it perfect? No, it never is. However, man, I can look at her and like I have a relationship with her of like such just this closeness and this admiration and respect for her, because now as a mom myself, especially, I go, man, how did you do it?
Yeah.
Like, wow, that was a lot, and I know motherhood is not easy, whether you're with a spouse or not with a spouse, like there's always circumstances
Yeah.
and it's hard. But I think that's such a beautiful thing that you're sharing, is that, and we oftentimes like maybe don't think about that when we're younger, but I love that you're already thinking about, like, I want them to be able to say that about me later on in life. I want them to know that they were a priority and that they were loved hard, and we went through all of the things, but it always came from a place of love and knowing that and them knowing that they are your priority. I mean, that is really, I mean, that's a beautiful thing about motherhood, is because there are, I mean, we could go on and on about how there's so many kids that don't feel that. So even in the imperfection, there's so much beauty. And I think that's what's special about motherhood too. So I can totally relate, and I love that. And I know that as you, in the last 9 years, and with being a wife and then becoming a mom, you also kind of dove into being an entrepreneur, even though you were at home, you wanted to do something, and you had decided to kind of go in that direction. What what inspired you to become an entrepreneur as a young mom?
Uh, Honestly, the desperate need for income. Being
I love it.
a single military income family living in the expensive states. I mean, we were stationed in Hawaii and California. It's not cheap to live in either one of these beautiful places. And, um, for us to live as comfortably as we wanted to live, we needed more. And I had to make that work. I wish I had a nice, inspiring answer about ambition and work ethic, but that has just never been me.
Yeah.
I never wanted a job, never wanted to go to college. Like I've had missing assignments in my backpack probably since I was in your class in second grade. So working hard to like establish myself in some big, profound professional way was never a goal of mine.
Mhm.
We also, Danny and I, as parents, knew that 9 to 5s and childcare and spending time away from our family was not what aligned with us either. And so I did what I had to do to experience the best of both worlds. And, I was introduced to the direct sales, multi-level marketing, network marketing, whatever
Mhm.
title tickles your brain the most.
Yeah.
That whole industry, I was introduced by a dear friend, and decided like that's my path. Like if I'm gonna if I have to do anything, this is what I'm gonna do. And I, for 7 years almost, put my head down and poured my heart and soul into building something substantial
Yeah.
and being so committed to not letting it take away from my motherhood and sharing that with other women and providing them the same opportunity. And yeah, things just kind of spiraled from there. Really.
Yeah.
I think,
Well, oh, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I think that that's what makes that industry so perfect and beautiful for moms, is because we don't have to choose. Yes, we have to sacrifice. Yes, we have to work. Yes, it adds to the load that already feels unbearable at times. But like,
Right.
dang, is it worth it to not have to miss out on any of those single moments that we get to be there for? And so, yeah, that,
Yeah, no, so a couple of things. So a little secret, this is part of why I wanted to have you on, because I think it's so important for our audience to know. Number one, one of the things I was going to mention in the intro is like, I love that you're a straight shooter and like you're just going to be that authentic person and say, like, it wasn't like I had this big dream to go out and earn millions and like I was going to be this entrepreneur. Like that wasn't where it started. It literally came from a place of like,
being broke.
holy crap, like if I want to live at the beach, which is my place, it is my jam, like I know it costs money and I got to do something to make some extra
Yeah.
money. And that's the reality of like most people that are getting into, being an entrepreneur as a mom that is staying at home. They don't want to miss out and they want to be able to have something that's more flexible. And I watched you evolve into this space. And again, super intrigued because it really was beautiful, the community that
Yeah.
you built, and just the way that you did business and were mom, like there were so many facets of that. And I know that like navigating wearing all of those hats is no easy feat at all. And so you were constantly like, there was always that juggling of the multiple roles. And I know, and I remember you would even be authentic in your stories and in your posts. And I just remember you were very active on Instagram, like talking about that and
Yeah.
getting feedback. And I think that's what people like, because you resonated so much with other moms, that is what drew in this beautiful community. And I think that that was just so cool to watch, because I do remember even often telling you, man, I wish that I had you at my age. Like, because I remember being that young mom back in the day and I was like, okay, where's my community? Like, I was going to work, I was teaching, and I didn't have a community of moms really. I mean, we had our village, like I had your mom, thank God, who watched my daughter. So I had that, but I didn't have like, I wasn't doing life with other women in
Yeah.
that way that I saw you doing life with other women. And I thought that was so cool. But I also know there were challenges in that. So navigating being the wife, the mom, the entrepreneur, what started to feel like your biggest challenge?
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah.
know there's a lot we can unpack here, but
Well, like, I mean, I've always, always, always made it a point to shed some light on the struggle with the juggle.
yeah,
Because I think, I mean, our circumstances and our needs take that choice away. Like we don't have a choice a lot of the time. We gotta freaking make it work. We have to wear the hats because the hats need to stink and be worn. And it's okay to complain about them sometimes, but like, what are we going to do about it? And that's sort of where I existed in a lot of like why I shared the way that I shared and the things that I shared. Also, can we take just 2 seconds and say we're talking in past tense, because I'm
Mhm.
not like actively doing this anymore, and we can
Yes.
touch on that in a little
Yeah,
bit. But
we will for sure.
we've been putting this all in past tense so far
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
No, I think motherhood can be very isolating, and I think it can be very lonely. And I think that industry and that community that I built through that industry, um, and the ways that it added to my life financially, emotionally, and physically were so much about connection. And, um, you know, again, going back to being a young mom, even now, when I meet people my age, their kids are not my kids' ages. Or when I meet people who have kids, my kids' ages, they got 10 years of life on me. And so finding somebody in my shoes, finding somebody that I felt like could really relate to me,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard. It's hard. And I think that's why I was so passionate about creating that space for other women, is because we're, even when we feel alone or lonely all the time, well, we feel lonely all the time. We're never alone because we're
Right.
moms. We need to know that we're not.
Mm.
And we need to know that there are other people out there that feel the same way. And I think getting so much feedback from so many people that don't know me at all, knew me once upon a time, or know me very well, of just like, you put that into words so perfectly. Like, I feel the same way. Or thank you so much for sharing that, because
Mm-hmm.
like that's also on my heart. I think those are the connections that matter most in life. And that those comments and that feedback really sparked something in me, and turned my passion into obviously earning an income. It was my job. I needed it to pay me.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but the passion for helping other mothers feel less alone,
Yeah.
I think, is where most of the success came from.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, it was selling products, and it was educating, and it was teaching, and it was sharing, but it was deeply connecting with women in all walks of life. In
Yeah.
And so the struggle with the juggle, I think, is something that any mother on the planet understands. And
Totally.
it looks different for everybody, but we all have a lot that we're juggling, whether it's work in school, or kids in household, or relationships, or personal demons. Like, we are all juggling a whole lot. And so just holding space, and just speaking from my own personal experience, I think, is where that journey kind of went. And with that, um, sharing the guilt or the stress of the shortcomings, like, you can only keep so many balls in the air for so long before one of them falls. And
Right.
sharing about which one is falling and when and how hard
Yeah.
helped, made it easier for me to have the support that I was looking for to be able to pick it back up. Whether it was, you know, I just always feel like I was neglecting one area,
Mm.
whether it was, my business is doing great, but my marriage is failing, or my marriage is doing great, but I'm really disconnected in motherhood, or I'm feeling way on top of the world in motherhood, and my marriage and my family's great, and business is not looking so well. Like, there
Yeah.
are always ebbs and flows, and waves, and changes to that. And I think normalizing that is important, because nobody has it all together all the time.
Totally. Totally. And which then brings me to last summer, you and I, obviously we had been connected and I was watching you go through all of this. And I remember, sending you like private DMs and just going, I'm rooting for you. And I didn't even know all of the ins and outs of what was going on, but I saw some things and then I knew some things on the back end but life is moving fast and I was going through some changes in my life. You're going through changes. I mean, there's just like so many things happening. And one of the things that I had pivoted is, going from retiring early as a teacher because of my own struggles with the juggle and, trying to be mom. And I was on the other end of it where my children were no longer toddlers. My daughter had gone off to college. Our son was in middle school at the time. And it was like I had realized, holy cow, life goes by so fast.
Yeah.
And I need this time. And then being on the other part of this where I'm at an age now in midlife. I just heard now midlife is like over 40. So I was in this place at midlife at the time, well over 40. And I was not only looking at my own children, but I was also starting to take care of my mom and my grandma. And so I was in this like weird space of like, oh my gosh, I want to value the time that I have with my parents and my grandma, but I also want to value this time with my kids, and I'm trying to do it all and it's not working.
Yeah.
And it just was not working. So my alignment got really wonky. And that's when I decided it was time for me to shift and make a major pivot in my life, in which I had like started this whole thing with, coaching and podcasting and all of the things. And with that being said, we were kind of watching each other go through these pivots in life at different stages. And we were, having these background conversations. And I'll never forget one day you reached out and you were like, okay, I don't even know where I want this conversation to go, but we need to talk. Like I need to I need to figure some things out. And I was like, okay. And one thing led to another. And I had started running this program and I was still new at all of this, but we were doing the Shine by Design program. Lo and behold, you ended up, being a part of that. And one of the things that really stood out to me was how you like embodied this whole idea of stepping into her at that time.
Yeah.
You were still an entrepreneur, you were still doing all the things, but I watched this shift and it started off subtle, but then I was like, "Ooh, I'm watching like some bigger things happening." And when I say bigger things, I mean like all of a sudden I felt like your little beach house is turning into like potentially a homestead. And then there's like homeschooling going on. Like all of these things are starting to shift. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about that experience in your life and like what that's even been like for you in the last year and what like steps you took in that journey. Like I'd love to just hear all the things.
Oh, well, I think when we were having those conversations, the place that I was in was not great. I think how can I describe that? Like you said, there was a lot happening. There were a lot of changes. There were a lot of anticipated changes. Like I said, these transitions that I described at the beginning, we saw them coming. We knew they were coming.
Right.
And there's stresses and we have to figure things out. And motherhood in general and mental health and all of the things, all of the layers that I could be specific about, but at the end of the day, like really irrelevant. I feel like at that time in my life, I felt like life was like happening to me. Like there was so much life happening to me, and I was so desperate to not feel like that. I was so desperate to want to just grab life by the horns and embrace it and experience it and feel it. And I did not know where to even begin. Like, how do I make my life stop happening to me? How do I make like things stop spiraling around me? Like, how do you keep this plate, this full plate of mine from cracking and shattering over my head? So that's just, I think, where I was existing when we jumped into this journey together and participating in your program, because things in life were feeling so intense. And I did your program alongside of other resources, personal therapy, marriage counseling, our own personal conversations. Literally grasping at straws over there. I think what came of that transformational era, I don't know what to call it. I want to give it a nice title. But that chunk of time was really intense, and I was literally putting in 10 to 15 hours a week of self-development. Like it was a job. It was a job on top of my job, on top of my motherhood job, where I was like, I was quite literally doing 2 to 3 hours a day of different appointments, different sessions, different exercises, different
Yeah.
therapies of just like wanting to improve how I felt, wanting to shift and change my perspective. And again, just needing so much support.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what came of that and what came of your program for me was such a better understanding of myself,
Mm-hmm.
why I work the way I work and where I operate from and why I operate the way that I do. And putting so many pieces of myself together and allowing that to, well, understanding that I think was just inspiring and empowering. And I think it
Yeah.
naturally felt like more of a superpower than like life keeps happening to me because I am the way that I am and I need to. I don't even, I think, okay, I think I was trying to overcome so many things.
Mm-hmm.
And once I finally understood myself in these new ways, I could stop trying to overcome myself.
Yeah.
I could just be and I could accept and I could totally get everything that was going on in here. And I
Mm-hmm.
could overcome all the other things that were happening because life has not stopped happening.
Right. Right.
Literally way more chaotic now than it was
Yeah.
then. But for whatever, like aligning all of this personal stuff inside of me and completely surrendering to the idea that I was something that I needed to overcome
Mm-hmm.
freed up so much space and capacity for peace. And
Mm-hmm.
like peace was all I was chasing in that moment. Like I was literally just make it stop. Like literally like
Can we please press the pause?
like yes, like Jesus take the wheel from me. Please
Yeah.
because I'm swerving all over the place. And again, I don't know if I explained that well enough, but it really, like, big picture, you didn't change my life circumstances.
Yeah.
You didn't take any of the big things off of my plate. They were all still there. But I think connecting with myself in
Yes.
a new way and being so intentional and carving out so much of my like precious fragile time to do so
Mm-hmm.
was very transformative and it allowed everything else to kind of slough off naturally on
Mm.
its own, you know?
Yeah. Well, what I love, so there were a few things in there that I was like, oh, that's so good. Like, and I think the first thing that I loved that you did was you knew, like, you had that inner knowing that you were like, I've got to do something. And you
Yeah,
decided, you were like, I have to do something. And so the fact that you like even made a choice to go, I know like I don't even know what I'm searching for. I just know something's got to give. And I
yeah,
know life is going to keep happening, but you made this choice and you did seek out, like, it wasn't just me, it wasn't just a program, it wasn't just one thing, it wasn't like a magic, we're all looking for the magic to happen and off of like something easy, or they talk about like the magic pill that you can take to lose weight or whatever, like it
no, it
doesn't
was
happen
work.
that
It
way.
was work. It was
Yeah, it was
time-consuming,
work.
intense, uncomfortable work that
Yeah.
I knew for my sake and my children's sake needed to be done.
Right, right. And you were it's like, and that's what I think, was so beautiful about that time for you, because all of a sudden, like I said, you made that decision, you started investing in yourself. And one thing that while you were talking, I was like, what I loved is, even if it wasn't consciously being aware of this at the time, because I know, you mentioned, there's mental health, and this is like so huge, and I feel like it's now starting to be more talked about. But one of the things that I loved is that, like I said, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, you finally reached a point where you're like, I'm worthy to do this. And maybe it was, I'm doing this for my kids at
Yeah,
first, or my family, but the reality is that you made a choice that you were worthy to be able to do better and be better and feel better and find that peace. And through that work, you were able to. And that's what I started to see happening. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, like you would. So, you were very active on Instagram at the time for your business and all of this. And I remember it was so cute. I still always think about this because now that I know where you are now, and we'll talk about that, it was so cute because I remember one of the first videos that I noticed, and you had your kiddos, and I believe a friend of yours has like a little farm ranch type of
Mm.
homestead type of place with all these animals, and you guys got to go like babysit them or something.
We're the babysitters, the
Yes,
pig.
and so so here I see you, and like, now mind you, you live by the beach, so you love the beach life. This is like your space, this is your
Mhm.
serenity, but yet you would put like, I'm stepping into her, and that concept of this may not be the life I have right now as far as this all being mine, but this is what I imagine showing up as my favorite self to be. And so I remember you were like amongst the pig and the chickens and the
Experiences. That was all about those mini experiences I learned about that from
yes.
people of just like check yourself into the fancy hotel, girl. Like buy a nice dress, even if you return it after. Like have those mini experiences that make you feel like you are living the life you want to live. And
Yeah,
for me, it's not fancy hotels and nice dresses and home.
right.
It's mud and animals and like connecting in that way.
Yeah,
Honestly, so much of that, like again, understanding myself and connecting with myself, like it's
yes.
all in my bloodline. What I've been ignoring it. My grandma was a farm girl. My great grandparents owned a farm.
Right. Such a good point.
Like why was I not connected to this my whole life? But now as a mom and as like a grown woman, like being pulled towards that like a stinking magnet makes way more sense to me. And yeah, having those mini experiences where I get to borrow my friends' chickens and snuggle them and feed your pig and pretend like I live out in some sort of property is
Totally.
it's fun. It's so fun.
Well, and that was fun to watch. It was fun to watch. And I think, again, like what it was doing too is you had started to define for yourself and actually see this. And this isn't by anyone's doing, but just like your own connecting of finding those core values that you're like, I want to stick to those core values, family being one of them, that it was like, this is what I want for that. And that's what helps to make those decisions too. That's what helps to, when we are really connected to those, and it's not just something that is, but it's who we be, then we start to act in on that and we start to create that. So that's where I would love to kind of go into the place of like, let's talk present moment, and what does life look like now for you, and how do you still maintain a perspective during those tough times? Because like you said, life is still happening. You're ready to have a baby soon, and I mean, you got things going on. So how do you maintain that perspective that like life is doable and I can still apply these tools and all of the things? So tell us what life is like for Taylor now.
Life. I have so many mouths to feed. I have going on 4 kids, 5 pets, 2 parents. Our house is full of chaos and love, and it is like the most joyous thing to me.
Mhm.
I think again, sticking to those core values and the discoveries that came with that.
Mhm.
I think what I have done a lot of in the last probably 18 months is building healthy walls around myself.
Mm.
And this is where we can get into me leaving the industry.
Yeah.
Because like you've said so many times, I was so active on Instagram and I've always been able to share so openly and honestly and transparently because that's
Mhm.
like, how do you not?
Right.
And I have been so open and accessible to everybody, not just in my
Mm.
life, but literally in the world and on the internet.
Yeah.
7 years. And there is a strange sense of responsibility. Granted, mine was always backed up by passion, so it never felt super, super daunting, but it
Right.
started. There's a strange sense of responsibility, and there's a strange sense of like entitlement. I feel like other people started to feel entitled to know things about me and
Totally.
what
Yeah.
I'm thinking and why I'm feeling. And anytime I wanted to or needed to be private about something, there was kickback. And that's where I was like, whoa, like,
Yeah.
whoa, you don't get to know everything. Just
Right.
shared. And you know, I had to pivot for financial reasons, and that, you know, I left a company that I was with for 6 years and had a bit of an identity crisis when I did, because those deeply rooted connections and those like core memories of motherhood and those like really big transformational eras of my life, that community, that company, that whole aspect got me through a lot of that.
Yeah.
And when that was no longer serving me in the way that I needed to financially, it broke my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to change because I couldn't stay there.
Right.
And I had to shift and um, try something else and try something new to get back on my feet in that way. And giving all of that up, giving all of, you know, some people look at that as just a job. Like it wasn't just a corporate 9 to 5 job. I
Mm-hmm.
know you worked in an industry for decades where you are just so deeply rooted and connected to, like, there's a lot of layers there.
Right.
And it's
Absolutely.
not just quitting and getting a new job. It feels so much bigger than that. And that's what this was for me. Is I was like, gosh, this feels so big, but I have to do it because this isn't working in the way that I need it to. And I had a wee bit of an identity crisis, which happened in the middle of that intense era that I
Yeah.
talked about before. This was all part of that, of like,
Right.
I finally walked away from something that I thought was going to be my forever thing and was perfect for my family, and accepting that it wasn't was really hard. And then leaving behind all of those emotional responsibilities to these people in these communities and feeling like I wouldn't be understood, which is very hard for me to not feel like people understand me, which is probably why I overshare the way that I do. And shifting, and then to have that be a total flop,
Mm-hmm.
like a total flop, Noelle. And then being like, well, what do I
Right.
do now?
Yeah.
There was so much surrender in that. And I feel like I just got so lucky that life unfolded the way that it did, because my circumstances changed with my husband getting out and my husband's new job, really
Right.
taking off so much of the pressure of me like needing to make something work, and us being able to use this new baby and this pregnancy as the perfect excuse to like, okay, reel back, like this is where you need to focus.
Mm-hmm.
I got you. Like, husband is happy and willing and able to provide in a new way that hasn't existed for the last 10 years, and surrendering to that. But so much of that like chaos and so much of me like needing that peace came with me building these like healthy walls.
Yeah.
I feel like I built very healthy walls and boundaries around myself. And Danny and I were very actively working on building healthy walls and boundaries around the two of us. And then I have been building very tall and healthy
Mm-hmm.
walls around my family. And, you know, really, really being able to prioritize and focus solely on all of the beings within our four walls, which there's a lot of them. We got said there's a lot of kids, there's dogs, there's a chameleon running around here, a couple of bunnies. There's a lot of beings to
Yeah.
one. And getting the freedom to just do that has been amazing. And regaining my sense of privacy and my sense of self,
Yeah.
shutting out a lot of the outside world and cutting access. Like that sounds intense, but like it's what needed to happen for myself and for my family, because I need to retreat at this point, because I have been, I mean, we're not talking celebrity status by any means, but I've just been sharing my life with everybody, anybody who wanted to see, anybody who felt connected to it.
Right.
And I was so happy and willing to do so. And when life happened, I needed to pivot. I had to close some of those doors, and I had to shut down the Instagram account and not pick up the phone and not tell everybody what was going on until I'd worked through it myself, so that I could, you know, show up in better ways in other places in my life. And that's kind of where I've been. This pregnancy has been horrid. Like, it's been my hardest one so far. And having all of the grace in the world for myself to like not have to push through like I have the last 7 years. Friendships, I don't have to push through and show up for anybody else. Just me and my kids.
That's so good, because I'm going to kind of combine two questions that I was thinking about as we're, you know, starting to round out this show. Is that, you know, what advice would you give to women who are feeling stuck, whether it be in a career or life? Like, what advice would you give them? And then also, how do women cultivate more grace for themselves?
Yeah. Okay. I love this one. This, I feel like if you don't get it from anybody else, you will get it from me all the time. And that is permission. Like, you have my permission to change the narrative. And I think that is where we as women get caught up. Like, quitting your job is not the most positive narrative, but I didn't quit my job because I'm lazy and didn't feel like working.
Right.
And so getting to understand the narrative of why I quit my job, because it was not serving me in the way that I needed it to, financially, emotionally. It was taking away from that peace and those core values that I had worked so hard and so intensely on discovering and committing to.
Right.
That narrative is everything. And when you can look at something that way, and acknowledge that, yeah, it's hard, and yeah, it's a change, but like, girl, go off. Like, that is the permission that you need. And it felt like heroin. Like, that is how my friend put it to me. I was like very much struggling, and I was just like, I don't know what to do, like, yada yada yada. And she told me, she was like, I will give you all the permission that you need to quit, because quitting hard things or quitting things that aren't fun feels good. It feels good. And it did. And it was literally like heroin. That's what I keep saying, as I was like, I quit and immediately was like, this is the peace and the grace and the permission and the space and the time that I have needed for a long time. And now I have it.
Yeah. So
I think the narrative is everything. If you need to pivot in your life because life is too hard, or you need to pivot in your life because, you know, the cost is outweighing the mission or the goal, like, that is all the permission that you need.
Yeah.
Because you get one life, and I'm not going to spend it miserable.
Right. Well, that's right. Like, and I think that's where we were both coming from, is like, you reach a point that, you know, you're going, okay, I mean, again, you stuck to those values. You knew that this isn't how you wanted to spend the rest of your time. But again, you made a decision, because that was brave. I mean, that was, you know, you had built this whole thing, but you also, again, it's like all of these layers together, because it's like, yes, you had built that, but yes, you had made a decision to, prioritize your core values and stick to those. And you, it's not just an easy thing to say, okay, I'm done, because we can find all the excuses in the world. Like for me, I mean, in all honesty, and I would probably speak for a lot of teachers, not all, but we love our profession. We love working with the kids, but there's all this other stuff that we're juggling.
There's a mess.
But then you've got, oh my gosh, we're working for insurance. We're working for this. Like, there's no way I could get out of this. And I'm going to have this great retirement. Well, at the time before I retired, minimum retirement was still another 7 years in the classroom. That felt like an eternity to me at the time.
Yeah.
And then it was to get my maximum benefits out of my retirement was another 12 years. And I had already been in it for 24. And I was like,
I can't
oh
survive.
my gosh, I can't do this. And so, sometimes it comes out of a need of desperation, but sometimes it's just realigning yourself and really finding that there are other ways. And
Yeah.
there are things that you can tap into to find those ways. And it is a journey. It is a process. It's not something that comes, just easily. Like I said, there's no magic pill to all of this, but it really has been, something that I think for both of us, once we let it go and we decided, it was just like, it was like the weight of the world had been released. And does life still get hard? Yeah. It's not like it just all magically changed either, but I have the capacity and the space now to be able to handle those things with a little bit more grace and being able to give myself that grace.
Yep. I think there's so much power in vulnerability. And I think there's so much power in embracing these negative terms. That's why I will emphasize permission and narrative and grace all day long, because we can talk ourselves off the ledge all day long. We can go in circles and we can stay on that hamster wheel all day long. And at the end of the day, like, just know that you are entitled to your happiness. Like, that you are entitled to your peace. You are entitled to your happiness. You are entitled to the life that you live. And if you are willing to sacrifice some joy or willing to sacrifice some hard work to get use an era of life as a vehicle, it doesn't have to be the most pleasant. If you're willing to do that, great. But if you don't want to, then don't. And that's kind of where I'm just like,
totally. So, like, for you now, and I'll use this as our last, question. What does true joy and fulfillment mean to you now? Like, what does that look like in Taylor's world now?
Oh, I think it is being less affected by the world around me in a negative way. I think I have endured a lot of change the last 18 months. Like I said, specifics don't even matter, but if you want to sprinkle them out there to make other people feel good, I was diagnosed with PMDD. My marriage hit a rock bottom. My parents divorced at the same time, which navigating as an adult is so freaking weird. And like, I for a long time was standing alone in the middle between two crumbling family dynamics. And that felt so heavy. And I think that's, again, why I was explaining at the beginning of, like, life was happening to me. And I really wanted to just, like, put my hands out and spit. And it just felt like it was accumulating and accumulating and accumulating. And so much of what I've learned through this entire journey, the last almost 2 years, is doing what I need to do inside to free up some of that space and that capacity and peace to be less affected by the things around me, because none of that has changed. Like, literally none of that. My parents, my family's still weird. It's different.
Yeah.
It's not the most negative, like, daunting thing in the world, but, like, it's still hard. Marriage is still hard. Parenthood is still hard. None of that changed, but freeing up what I needed to free up within me helps me cope and deal with it way better without letting it pull me under. I think that's, like, my biggest commitment to myself now is I will always prioritize myself in a way so that life doesn't pull me under again, because I don't ever want to go back under again because
Yeah.
it sucked.
You know what that other side looked like for you and felt like.
I gotta, I'm so afraid of that. So when I feel like I'm going under, to take a break and utilize the resources and the community and the connections that I have in my life to do what needs to be done. I think that's joy to me, because now I'm not being pulled under, I'm not drowning. So I get to be present and I get to make the connections and, enjoy my time with my people, because I have a very beautiful life, and it used to kill me that I wasn't enjoying it.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, girl. See, this is why I am so grateful that you said yes to me. I know we were going back and forth on that too. But I honestly want to just say to you, Taylor, that I am so grateful for you. And I know it probably feels weird. I don't know how I would feel, even though we're community and you've been part of my world forever. So we don't just see each other as like teacher student, but like, it is kind of funny because I go, oh my gosh, it's like, yes, you were my second grade student, but you inspire me. And I am just so grateful that you decided to be brave and we're like, okay, I'm saying yes. And you said yes to me, but you said yes to so many other women that I really believe are going to be able to resonate with this. And maybe there's just one other woman out there that just needed to hear this message today, that it's okay. They have permission to pivot and to change and to help them to be brave. That was really like something that I just felt like your story is so important. And you are a younger mom. And I feel like, there's a lot of women on here that are, in midlife, such as myself. But even someone in midlife can take these lessons and go, yeah. I mean, we had a lot of moments, like where I was like, oh my gosh, I can so relate to you. And you were saying the same. And we're, I'm old enough to literally be your mother, but that's the beauty of womanhood, I think, and just our experiences. So I guess the teacher in me, I was like, I'm going to stretch you. And I want to watch you shine. I'm just like your biggest fan, and I am rooting for you and your family all the way. I just, how much I adore you guys. And I really believe, I know, and I'm going to like keep going on because I gush over you all the time, but I want you to see yourself as such a gift to this world. Like, honestly, such a gift to this world, because you do have this voice that is beautiful, and you are a straight shooter. You are that authentic girl. And I think just your vulnerability, it helps other women. Like, this is how we're going to help each other go through life in this crazy world, because goodness knows it is crazy right now. And I feel like that is what, as women, that's what inspired me to do this podcast, was to be able to say like, hey, we're all in this together. Because I can't tell you how many conversations I have that we start going, yes, me too. But until we get vulnerable and until we start to have these conversations, we will stay in these spaces where we think we're alone when we're really not. Yeah. And so that's why I so appreciate you. And I have a feeling that there's just so much ahead of you. And I just can't wait. I can't wait to see it all unfold. And I feel honored that I get to be a part of that. But again, a huge thank you to you, Taylor, for joining us today. And ladies, until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and know that the best is yet to come. All right. Bye, friends.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me here today. Your presence means the world to me. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider leaving a rating and review. And don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. Head to the show notes and let's connect. Rise to Shine Co. is ready to support you in coaching, collaboration, life tips, or even a coffee chat. Until next time, keep shining, my